Welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled Podcast. Are you over 40 and ready to truly thrive? Well, on this podcast, we go deep on ways to thrive across the 5 pillars of midlife: health, fitness, career, relationships, and legacy. I'm Bernie Borges, midlife advocate, life coach, and your host. Subscribe now and get ready to thrive. Mark Daly, welcome to the Midlife Fulfilled Podcast, a vulnerable conversations episode.
Well, thank you. Great to be here, Bernie.
It's great to have you. Before we get started, Mark, before we get vulnerable, why don't you share with my listener, which age decade are you in?
Well, I will hint. I'll give the audience a hint that I had to apply for Social Security recently.
Okay. So that would put you in your 60s, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's my decade is there as well. So we're both in the same decade. Awesome. Well, Mark, where would you like to begin this vulnerable conversation?
Well, we are in our 60s, and even though I get taken for granted an awful lot, I've had a rough life. So, that's why I look like this. But I've had actually a great life, and so I guess I don't know, where do I start? Um, you and I had a conversation previously about where I am in my career, what it's like in corporate America right now, and I've had a great career. And a couple years ago, I had a tragedy happen where I had a company, and I was a co-founder of the company, and my partner, much younger man than me, passed away at 46 years old. And unfortunately, because he was an American citizen, but he wasn't born here, raised here, and he didn't understand the legal system. And when you have an LLC, you've got to have an operating plan, and you've got to have a succession plan. And he didn't have that. So unfortunately, his ex-wife ended up with an incredible company, and 45 days later, everyone left. So that happened about 3.5 years ago, and I decided during that time frame, it was during just after COVID when he passed away, but during COVID, like everyone, I was looking for something to do around the house, not meeting with a lot of people. So I decided to in my basement, and I've got 3 adult children, a lot of their childhood toys and still school projects, and decided to go through the basement, one piece of paper at a time. And while I'm down there, I find 2 boxes, one box full of old emails and one box full of VHS tape spanning my career
When you say
from
old emails, you mean like printed emails?
yes, like printed email. It's a great question. So I spent between IBM, ROLM, and Siemens, I spent 27 years in that entity. And what I did, I was in management, and I I printed some emails just as a CYI, just in case I ever needed them. But I had a habit of every time I was on the phone with somebody, I had a pad. I'd write in the margins what we were talking about, your name, the date, something. And I had 20 years, 27 years of that type of archived stuff. And I was going through it, and I'm thinking, man, I had a great sales career. I had over 10 deals, well over $1 million. And I had many deals under $1 million that were north of 500,000. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, I could write a book. I should write a book. I learned so much, and it was a great piece of my career. And, uh, you know, um, as I'm going through these couple old emails, I find one from marketing, and marketing's like, it's like 2004. Hey, Mark, do us a favor, paying for all these trademarks. Can you go out and look at these trademarks of these products and stuff, and let us know what to keep? You've been here forever. You know better than we do. I'm looking at all these old products, and the succession, the whole setup is IBM. There was ROLM, a company. IBM bought ROLM for 1.25 billion in the 80s. Turned around a couple years later, sold to Siemens for an undisclosed amount. Siemens kept the name, but they kept everything in the product line. So the product line had old product in there going back to the ROLM days. So I'm going through a spreadsheet, and I'm marking stuff off. Get rid of this, get rid of this. But I never even went to market. You shouldn't be paying for it. Get down to the name ROLM. I said, you know what? Keep that name. And the marketing guy writes back, why would we keep that name? I said, well, that was a story, Silicon Valley, American success story. They got product in the Smithsonian, product in the and the San Jose Computer Museum, they set the tone and the culture for Silicon Valley back when it was a good place to work. And
I remember, Mark. I'm dating myself, but of course, I'm not really dating myself. Everybody knows that I'm in the same decade as you. But I remember I actually worked in Silicon Valley, and I used a ROM phone. It was awesome back in those times. It was pretty high technology, for a phone system. So I was an actual user.
well, no, and that doesn't surprise me. A lot of people our age or older certainly remember it. But where was I going with that? So, I tell them we go down the spreadsheet. I said, keep rolling. They said, why? Why would we do that? And I said, it was a storied company. Maybe Siemens will want to reactivate it and use it someday. And then he writes back, well, how long? And I just flippantly respond, keep it to 2020. Well, fast forward, I'm in 2020 right now. And I said to myself, geez, when I go upstairs, I need to go to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and see if that thing's available. So I finished cleaning up and writing stuff and getting rid of stuff. And I go upstairs, and about a day or two later, I said, oh, let me go check that. And there it is. It's available. So I called my daughter. She's an attorney, one of the daughters. And, hey, Camille, can you pick up that trademark pad? I'm not your secretary. You can figure out how to do it. What do you want anyway? I said, I don't want Rome. Oh, well, I'm sure Siemens off that. And I could hear her clicking in the background or like, oh my God, that's available. I said, yeah, it is. She goes, what are you going to do with it? I said, well, my partner, had passed away, and I, I need to do something. I'll just start a company. And she goes, well, you just can't do that. I said, well, that's what trademarks are all about. Because Dad, get a big law firm to represent you, because that's a big company. If I got it for you, you can be an attorney of record, have a big law firm, because they would crush me. And I don't practice law. She's got her JD, but she doesn't do that. And so I went out and I got a giant law firm, and they said, Mark, here's the deal. Not on the website, even though it says it's dead, and even though it says it's available or abandoned, you can get it. But the way the courts work, they'll give it back to Siemens within a 3-year period. After that 3 years, then it's anybody's game, or
So
go out and get a release.
so it's kind of like a statute of limitations is the 3-year period.
Yeah, and they don't publish it on the website. And this is a big law firm. I called a friend of mine up in DC who has just joined a large law firm, and I said, "Hey, Jacob, how many IP attorneys do you have?" He says, "Well, I got 143." I said, "Okay, you're the right company then. This is what I want to do." And he knew who Rome was too, because when he first got out of law school, he says, "Yeah, I could punch a code in my phone. I could do bill back to clients that way." I said, "Yes, Rome had a big legal practice. The law firms loved it." So what they said was wait or go get a release. And I wasn't going to, that division of Siemens doesn't even exist anymore. They have nothing to do with communications in general. So I said, you know what? I'll wait 3 years. For 3 years and one day, I called that law firm. I said, get me that logo. And I've been doing some consulting work, in that time frame. And I'm real excited because I'm on the cusp of, I can't reconstitute the same company, and it can never be the same
Right,
company.
right, right. So Mark, I wanna come up a little higher because that's a great story, but I want to talk about the why. Like, what is your motivation behind doing this? You told me about an experience before we press record about sort of a job search thing that you went through, and if that's part of your why, I want to make sure that that's part of our conversation.
Well, so that is the why. All right. So I'm out and I'm looking for a new position, and I've had a great career, and I've done everything from channel marketing and channel management to alliances, and I managed SAP, a little software German company, and
I've heard of
for
them.
yeah, a little company out of Waldorf. And I did a lot of business with them when I was with Siemens, but I managed them for CA Technologies, and it was a pretty good job as an alliance manager. And another company was hiring for that exact position, so I applied for it. I got the call immediately. I interviewed, and a lovely young girl interviewed me about my daughter's age, and she asked me to come back and do a presentation, and I did. And I do it for her boss? Yes, I did. And I added some things to it. And one of the things I added, because I knew SAP so well, was, let's come up with a mobile app, and I'll put that in the deck too. And then I won't complete it, but I did the wireframes for it. I presented to her boss. He loved it. And then she said to me, Mark, I learned more in the last presentations about SAP than I have in the last 5 years. I want to bring you on board, but let me get my boss's concurrence. And then she went silent for a couple of weeks. And finally, I left her a guilt message. Hey, you need to call me back. And she did. And she goes, look, I've been avoiding you only because I've been fighting with my boss. He wants to hire somebody with more runway. And I started to laugh. I said, more runway. I've never experienced that before. So in my life, when I had 4 older brothers, and I revered them as older brothers, and I learned from older people. And I actually hire older people a lot because they have all this experience. And I don't that whole notion of not hiring somebody because they don't have enough runway. So I coached her and I said, look, never say that to anybody ever again, because you could be sued for saying that. That's age discrimination. She goes, no, it is. And I'm really mad at my boss. I said, well, I'm not happy with him either, but don't say that ever again, because you could be sued and I'm not going to sue you. But she goes, he's going to go with this other person. And she told me who the person was, who I know who it is. He ended up taking the job and he lasted 18 months. And I kept a monitor. I put a, you can do on LinkedIn, you can do
Sure.
an alert. So that job came up again, and I sent that manager, her boss, a note saying, I guess he didn't have enough runway, and left it at that. But so it gets frustrating. So you're out there, you're trying to get a job, and there's some companies, to be candid with you, I'm real critical. I'm not going to work for just anybody. I'm not. I'm good at what I do. If I'm going to represent you, you're going to have to meet my standard. It's not the Gartner standard. That's a gold standard. Mine's a platinum standard. So there are companies that I probably could have went to work for. And then there's companies also that were trying to lowball me. So I got really frustrated. And this whole ROLM thing is on my PC and thinking, yeah, I need to do something with this, and it was a great company. And kept thinking, what can I do with it? And then I belong on Facebook to something called the ROLM Alumni Group. And there's 3,300 former employees up there. And it is a brain trust that's untapped of really smart, creative people. And so it's a very active group too. There's a lot of jokes and things that go on, but there's a lot of people that talk about their history and their stories there. And I had a great career there. It was a great place to work. And that was the motto, great place to work. Long before anybody else used that motto, they had it. And they had a campus in Santa Clara. They had swimming pools. They gave people sabbaticals, but it wasn't just about product. It was the culture of the company and how they treated employees, but also how they treated customers. So there was a book that came out about 10 years ago, starting up Silicon Valley, how ROLM became a Fortune 500 company. Great book. Catherine Maxfield wrote it. She's the wife of Bob Maxfield, one of the original founders. And it's a great book. It talks about the headquarter location, the acquisitions with IBM and Siemens, talks about the culture, the ROLM philosophies, but it also talks about who was on the campus, in the early days, a lot. And Steve Jobs was there. Bill Gates was there. A lot of the Silicon Valley stalwarts took a lot of the culture that ROLM had, and that's how they used that as a foundation for their companies. I think some of them have gone astray, to be candid with you, but other ones have not. And so I'm looking at all this. I'm saying, geez, if I start up a company, it can't be the same products. Maybe I can get some of the same people. But I'm looking at this as a business, not as a fun club. I'm on the board of an AI company in Santa Clara on Great American Parkway. That's Rome had a building there, and it's an industrial strength AI tool. And so we've got some customers. I've got some equity in that company, and part of my role in that company is to help them go to market. So I sat down with that CEO and I said, I'm going to resurrect ROLM and ROLM AI. And Because why not just ROLM.com? And I said, wow, that's a great idea, but somebody owns that URL and we need to make it new anyway. So I own ROLM.ai. I also own ROLM.cx, customer experience. And that's something that ROLM was great with. So what I decided to do was let me reconstitute it differently, but I want to have the same principles and values of that company, which, taking care of customers, taking care of employees, and I'm very excited about this because there's a lot going on in the AI. But there's also a lot going on in cybersecurity, and I've got things in motion in both those areas.
Okay. So, a couple thoughts that I want to share, Mark. One is for my listener who is listening and not watching on video, because, listener, I hope you know that every episode is recorded on video and it's available on the YouTube channel. So, I'm looking at you, Mark, and you look like you're in a home office setting. And over your left shoulder is a well lit sign, which is the Rome sign. So,
Mhm.
for the listener who may not know, the Rome name is spelled ROLM, as in Monday. So, you've got that Rome sign right over your left shoulder. And also, as I look at your body language, I can see how excited you are about this and the story that you told about this position that you were eminently qualified for that you didn't get because you didn't, quote unquote, have enough runway, at least perception wise, right? Their perception. And now you are coming across like a bulldog. Like you've got this thing. That's a positive thing, by the way. In case anybody owns a bulldog, bulldogs are wonderful dogs.
Well, I
Like
live in Georgia. I live
yep.
in Georgia, so we got the
There you
Bulldogs
go.
here.
The Bulldogs of Georgia. Yep. So you are passionate about this, Mark. You are fired up about this. So, um, this is not a business podcast, so I don't want to give the listener like too much detail on your business strategy. I
Okay.
want to I want to kind of humanize this. Like, tell us about the emotion you're experiencing. What's your family think about this? I mean, just give
Well,
us more insight into that.
that's a great segue. Great question. So when my partner passed away, I decided, well, I'll have my own shingle. I'll go out and do some stuff myself. And I called up a couple CEOs that I know, and I said, you know what? You've done business with me before. Go to your Rolodex, give me 5 names, or you send them 5 emails and introduce me, and I just have a cup of coffee. Well, what are you going to sell them, Mark? I said, listen, I'm not going to sell them anything. It's what do they need and what's broken. So that's the best way to sell something. And I've been in the technology space so long. It's not really, I don't go out and try to sell a feature function product. I try to solve a problem, a business problem. So I did well with that for about 6 months. And the first CEO I spoke with, he had a sales issue. He didn't know why he had such turnover. And I did an analysis. I only took me about a month and a half. I put him on retainer for a couple months, and then I told him I'd give him a report and make some recommendations, which I did. And then he came back and he fired a bunch of people and he said, Mark, I need to hire some people. Can you help me there too? And I got him some employees. And next thing my income was great for 6 months. And then you take a dive, right? And it's inconsistent. When you're doing this on your own, uh, you're hitting a bumpy road. And so my grown children are like, hey, Dad, why don't you're a pretty handy guy too. And why don't you just get a job at Home Depot and you can mix paint and tell wallpaper. I did that when I was in my youth. My brother owned a wallpaper and paint store up in New York. I said, I'm there's nothing wrong with that. I like that, but I'm not at that point in my career to check out and work Home Depot and then my youngest daughter suggested it twice. She was emphatic about it. She said, Dad, but I know you're struggling a little bit. The income's up and down, up and down. And my wife works full time, so it's not that bad. And so I said, no, I'm going to do something else. And then um, I decided to put a business plan together, and wanted to share it with my kids. Now, everybody's proud of their kids, and I'll be candid with you. I think I hit the trifecta with my three. I've got a daughter who's attorney, but she's a senior manager at Deloitte, managing the FTA, for software development. I've got a son in Denver who was a world-class lacrosse player and does a lot of video editing and video drone footage and shooting weddings and all kinds of stuff for ABC and other people. He lives in Denver, and then my youngest daughter lives in New York, and she works not Madison Avenue, but she works downtown in Manhattan for an ad agency as well. So when we all get together, it's really an interesting conversation because I did a bunch of videos when they were little and corporate videos, but they weren't really professionally done. They were done at the
Sure.
local level, and they used to hear me in my office, and I'd have a flip chart, and I'd be rehearsing something, and they'd say, "Man, he's crazy. He's talking to himself." And the other, I'm practicing, so I instilled upon them. Even Tiger Woods, he practices.
Of
And
course.
baseball players go in the batting cage. You got to do the same thing in delivering a message. So for this event, speaking with you today, I did listen to a couple podcasts, and I think we got a winner here. And yes, I'm going down the business path, but a real life piece of this is my children. I two of those kids are getting married, one in 2 weeks, 17th, and another one October 4th in Ireland. So I've been wanting to get this company launched for a while, and it's going to happen right at the wrong time, but there's never going to be a
So,
great.
but it sounds like they're very supportive of you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they excited for you?
Well, you know what I did? I went out and I get to give away a little thing. Yes, they are excited. So I the old ROLM employees, the ROLMers, as they're as I affectionately refer to them as, and we talk say that to each other. We're Romans, friends, Romans, and countrymen. They were always into swag. So I put a swag store up on my website that I'll be launching in a couple of weeks. And the swag store has, polo shirts. It's got, hats, all kinds of stuff with the new logo. And I added things to the new logo that they'll appreciate. So what I did is I bought some swag and I mailed it to my girls. I said, I need a couple models. And immediately they got no. And then they said, okay. And so like that, um, one of my girls, one who lives in New York, her matron of honor lives here in Atlanta. And I said, hey, have Christina come over. She's a photographer. I said, I need a new headshot. And so she comes over and I get Christina a shirt to wear and took her picture. And my youngest daughter is like, Dad, you're getting the whole neighborhood involved. I said, I'm going to get everybody involved. I said, I want people to talk about this entity once it gets up there, but the swag is a fun piece, but they are supportive. And when they learned about the history of the company and they used to get their benefits, they saw that logo their whole lives. I had that sign hanging in my garage for 30 years. I took it down. I put some lights behind it because I've been wanting to do this anyway. So actually, your podcast pushed me to
Okay.
do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
but it's they're supportive. My wife is not a technology person. She's a public school library, and so this whole notion of technology. How do you make money? Just talk on the phone all the time, and or like,
So,
and
so Mark, I'm going to tell you a quick story. It's not apples to apples, but you reminded me of it, so I'm going to share it. And again, it's not apples to apples, but you'll see the similarity in a moment. Um, Early in my career, I worked for only 5 years for a company called Kodak. Used to be known as Eastman Kodak. Well, this was back in the 80s, and I was in sales in their technology, business imaging systems division. At the time, Mark, that company was way bigger than it is today. That's a company that they're still in business, but they're a fraction of what they used to be back in the 80s when I was with them. I was with them in their heyday. And what you reminded me of as you're telling the story is that similarly, it was a company with great culture. It was a company that was revered. It was a very strong brand, largely known for the consumer brand that it was,
mhm.
right? And probably still is. I don't know to what extent, but not as well known among the public as a business to business brand. It was in the business community, but the average person on the street thought of Kodak as a camera company and more importantly, as a film company.
Yeah.
But the point I'm getting at, where again, not apples to apples, but where there's similarity is just the reverence for the company and how, there wasn't a moniker of like Kodakers, but they used to say that they all bled yellow because that was their primary color, right?
Yep.
So people who are, lifers at Kodak bled yellow like that. They were just lived and breathed, you know, with great pride of their employment at Kodak. And I kind of see that kind of going on here with the pride of people who worked at Rome, people who were in that community. And I really admire what you're doing about just kind of bringing it back, not necessarily as a products company, not you're not reinventing the product that they sold into the in the marketplace back in the 80s, but the culture. And and here's I'm going to say this and tell me your reaction to this. The feeling that people had around that brand. I get the sense that you're trying to do that. You want to bring back that feeling.
That's precisely, it's spot on. And I remember Kodak because they were a customer of ours. And I believe we out of Rochester, if memory
Hmm.
serves me correct.
Yep, yep, yep.
So, yeah, they were a great company. It is that culture. It is that feeling, and the feeling of not only camaraderie. I still get calls today from Romans. Not as many as I used to. Hey, Mark, I've got an HR issue. I need to run this past somebody. It's not my company tonight that's going to give me the straight. How's this going to get handled? Or, Mark, I got a technology issue. Or, Mark, I'm looking at these 5 technologies. Could you just give me an hour of your time and tell me which way to go? And these are relationships that are lifetime relationships. You grow up in that time when you were a Kodak, might have been the same time when I was at Rome. You grow up during that period and you learn so many things. And then in our case, we did Friday night cutovers and went into the weekend, and you get to spend a lot of time with people and you get to know them and their kids, and you get invited to their weddings and their bar mitzvahs and everything else. And and they're more than just friends, they're family. So you drop what you're doing. If I get a call, matter of fact, I went up to my LinkedIn the other day. I'm getting ready to change it all, and it says, pronoun Roman. I'm a Roman. That's what I am. so, so I'm
That's
hoping
a
that
first.
I hope that catches on. I actually I got some swag made that says my pronoun is Roman. No,
That's a first.
I think
That's a
they'll get it.
first.
But when you go back to the culture and the people, we had second to none, the best products that were out there on many occasions. When you have that many owners, your cultures of companies changes. IBM was shirt and tie. Rome was just cool. Siemens was not shirt and tie, but you could drink beer, and they had some good products, they had some holes in your products as well. And the culture changes over those acquisitions. But that core group of people that were Rome employees stayed there for a really long time. And I have deep love and respect for a lot of the people that I work with. And like my operations manager, well, we started out as engineers together, ended up working for me when I left as my operations manager for North America. And he and I text each other probably 2 or 3 times a day still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that culture, that feel, yeah, I desperately want to bring that. And I want to bring back something in corporate America that doesn't really exist anymore. It's loyalty, and I put up on my website. You want to apply, you can apply, but you'll be able to see their own philosophies and look at what the original founders put in place, and that's a cornerstone. But the other cornerstone is something called the Sweat Pledge from a guy by the name of Mike Rowe, and and that's up there too. I would encourage listeners to go to ROLM.ai, go to careers, look up the Sweat Pledge, or you go to Mike Rowe's site to take a look at it. And it goes through hard work is not taboo, and
Well, I think what I've gotten from this conversation is just a great example, a testimony, Mark, of I don't if you want to call it a second act. I've heard people use the phrase second act, but whatever you call it, the fact that you've got a lot to offer the world and you found a passion. You told your story about how you got there by going through the boxes in the basement and the emails you came across, and then the whole trademark expiration. And, you waited the 3 years and then you got it, and now you're going after it. And that's what I want the listener to take away from this conversation, Mark, is the passion that you found, and you're just going after it
Well,
with passion.
I am, and I'm passionate about it because I think it's a winner no matter what offering I bring. If it's under that brand, I'm vetting the companies extremely well. They got to deliver the best service. They got to have the best products. And I'm not bringing in name brands. I'm bringing in brands that people don't know that they should know. But the culture of the company was just an open culture where we took care of the customer, and that was, you know, the whole gist of it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Mark, let's wrap it here. But first, why don't you tell my listener if they want to connect with you, how can people get into your world?
Sure. So the website will be launched in the near future, and it'll be ROLM.ai or ROLM.cx. Both will go to a ROLM landing page. And the reason that is somebody owns ROLM.com and they want $20,000 for it. There's no way that's happening. So the workaround, and then you always want an IT guy that's got a workaround. It's ROLM.ai, ROLM.cx, and you'll come to the page. So I appreciate the time, Bernie.
And if someone wants to connect with you, Mark, what's the best way to do that?
With me, LinkedIn would be the best way, and so I'm on LinkedIn all day long, and it's
Okay.
so that would
Well,
be great.
my listener knows that both of those will be linked up in the show notes. So, Mark, I want to thank you for coming on the Midlife Fulfilled podcast, having this vulnerable conversation, and just sharing your story. It's inspiring, and I'm going to wish you fantastic success and fulfillment.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time as well, Bernie.